Very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to our global audience. Welcome to the session, Technology Shaping Enterprise Business Agility, how CIOs, CDOs are enabling healthcare organizations become future ready. As we launch into this new world, business agility has taken precedence for every technology player and technology executive out there. The healthcare industry has adopted innovative strategies to deliver quality of care, quality of life to patients, and the quality of science, which is all pervasive today with the vaccines and with the cures for COVID. The industry has adopted a digital-first model to sustain revenues, optimize spend, and advance science. The challenge is, however, how to deliver this whole digital experience at scale across the globe, and hence it becomes all the more complex. Quality of care to mass markets with the impedance of regulatory barriers needs a new business framework and reimagining the traditional approaches for technology adoption and rollouts. So what strategies are CIOs and CDOs undertaking to drive these new demands of business agility and the demands from the mass at large? Joining me is three esteemed, distinguished panelists. They are movers and shakers in the industry, and I've had the privilege of working with them in the past. I have Joyce Lee, CIO of Janssen Pharmaceuticals, part of the Johnson & Johnson Group. Vishu Chittibabu, CIO of Abbott Diabetes. And Giuseppe Firenze, the CIO of International Business Units of Lilly. Welcome, Joyce Lee. She joins me from Singapore, and she is the CIO of Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals. As the Vice President and Global Group CIO, she is the strategic member of the J&J Janssen Group Operating Committee and the J&J Technology Leadership Team. She is responsible for global IT strategy development across R&D and commercial, and leads the global pharma TLT to drive business transformation and value creation using innovative technology capabilities. We have Vishu Chittibabu. Welcome, Vishu. He joins me from California. Vishu, as I said, is the CIO of Abbott Diabetes Care. He has led, through the pandemic, the strategic nature of IT to become the strategic differentiator to drive hypergrowth. Abbott continues to grow significantly over the last 4 years with over double-digit growth and almost 3.5 million patients who have been onboarded. Vishu and his team are addressing digital transformation, technical currency, and also manufacturing expansion during this hypergrowth phase. Welcome, Giuseppe Firenze. He joins me from Indianapolis as the Global CIO of International Business Units at Lilly, which serves the diabetes, oncology, biomedicines, and Lilly international business units across all 40+ associates across the world. As the global enterprise leader for global commercial operations organization, he reports directly to the chief marketing officer and is shaping the market execution strategies to transform business. Welcome, Vishu. Welcome, Joyce. Welcome, Giuseppe. We meet again. It was 12 months ago when we met in the same forum. And at that point in time, the pandemic was raging in full glory. Today, we have vaccines, diagnostics, cures, and we went through so much in the last 12 months. Walk us through what really went on and what kind of demands did the business place on each one of you? Vishu and Giuseppe, please provide your perspectives. Let me first request Joyce to kick it off, but please feel free to add your perspectives as well. Joyce?
So let me start by saying what has happened in the last 18 months. I think the COVID-19 has definitely accelerated several tech trends. and I'm sure all of you saw it. I think number one, the rapid and extreme digitization and automation. So there was a heightened level of that. Data has become a key asset and key differentiator to drive deeper insights. So in J&J alone, we saw 30% growth in annual data growth. So that's quite a bit. Healthcare industry also became a target for cybersecurity attacks, both on personal data and intellectual property data. Last but not least, there was definitely a company. We saw an increased appreciation and drives towards digital culture and mindset. And we also had to double down on skills that were lean towards AI, intelligent automation, customer experience, design thinking, and hyper personalization. So over to Vishnu and Giuseppe, who wants to add other things.
No, thank you, Joyce. It's very nice to meet you and Giuseppe and Subrata, and thanks for giving us the opportunity. I think Joyce summarized it very well. Definitely the acceleration on the digital front was huge. I think one of the things we noticed was we always, keep the customer at the center of everything we do. What we found out was it was customer who was basically saying where they want to meet us, whether it's offline, online, or even curbside pickup. So I think the whole ecosystem changed with regards to how the customer wanted business to be done in this pandemic. So the things that Joy spoke about on digital, AI, ML, cybersecurity, I think these are all key areas. And one of the things we kind of did was, it's always about people, process, and technology, right? From our people perspective, taking our employees into consideration, we did start with everybody working remote, then we switched to hybrid, and now we are kind of coming into mostly coming into the office. And from an Abbott perspective, by the way, I want to thank Joyce and J&J for their vaccination and Giuseppe for all the medications they have. So if you think about all three of our companies, one had medication, one had vaccine, and one had diagnostic testing. Yeah. So, proud of what Abbott came up with regards to all the COVID testing. Again, the customer kind of dictated what they wanted from us, which was, give us a convenient test that we can do it at home. And initially we did it with where, we had a proctor in between. When the customer basically said, I don't want any proctor, I want a quick test that tells me whether I'm COVID positive or negative, Abbott was able to quickly, able to deliver that. So in addition to digitization, acceleration of even product development happened, and the FDA was kind enough to accelerate some of these approvals also. So when you do see certain things, that puts more onus on technology. So we had to be at the speed of what is needed for regulatory changes. We had to be faster with regards to even a product website or any kind of mobile apps we're building. So it was it was a new normal, you can call it. But what I can tell you is technology and IT played a very key role, and that's the reason why Abbott saw IT team as a huge strategic differentiator. Over to Giuseppe.
And thank you, Vishu and Joyce and Subrata. I'm still reporting to the CIDO. I'm partnering with all the CMOs we have at Lilly. I would say, I think Vishu, you were going towards my area. I think one of the major demands we experienced, at least at Lilly and serving all the business unit, was how we can quickly pivot to what we call a hybrid model. Right, all our model was highly face-to-face, right? Not only in this market, for us, United States is the #1 market in the world, but as well also in our international markets. So that has been, looks like simple, was not as simple. Just to give you some example, in some of our affiliates, we have still details printed, right? So we needed to digitize, we needed to apply UX on that. We didn't know what were the platforms to enable our reps to interact with our physicians. So that is an element. The other element, I think, Joyce, you said it very well, is about the power of data. I think the pandemic showed that finally, I would say data analytics is a crucial strategic capability you must have. I would say one of the elements we're working more is about how we can transform content into data. I think it's not any longer about engaging our customers through the channels, is to understand, can we go to the next level? Because access issues, new norm, new intents is what is the content actually that works versus what doesn't work. So I think that has been an element. And then it's not about transforming the way we connect with our customer, is how we can create much more productivity in our ecosystem. From our end, and in my end, I see an explosion of, I would say, automation type of projects, so we can remove a low value added activity from all the function, including our medical, sales and marketing, sales operation, marketing operation organization, so that we can pivot the organization to more value added work. So I would say there was what I call system of engagement, a lot of demand, especially the hybrid model, but the back office was shaken to drive productivity. I had a friend of mine in Italy, actually, he told me, we were always hoping as a CIOs, we need to use and how you scale digital at the companies. I always said, is the CMO or the CTO going to drive the digitization of the company? I think I have to admit the pandemic from this end was a huge boost because that's accelerated digitization and a lot of new mindset and experimentation that we might comment later on that has taken our roles in a much more strategic point of view. And from my end, I'm beautifully partnering with medical affairs leader, with CMOs. It's tremendous the opportunity that we are having at our hands.
Yeah, well said, Giuseppe. And the power of technology today is like we are a kid in a candy store. Just imagine what you want, and technology needs to deliver. And with so much POCs going on with automation, AI, intelligence, hyper personalization that Joyce you mentioned, there is proof of concepts and test and learns everywhere around the world in your organization. How are you filtering it to scale at an enterprise level when you have to take it to the masses, like we should put it with diagnostic drugs and with vaccines?
One of the things that didn't stop even during a pandemic was if you have diabetes, you're still going to keep testing, for your continuous glucose monitoring. So the calls that came into our call center didn't stop. But what changed was with regards to how do you make sure that you support this sort of a scalability when people are all working from home. So, you touched upon chatbots. That's something we definitely utilized. But the other thing also is how do you make sure that some of the remote working tools, so, which is kind of unusual because in an ecosystem like this, whether it's J&J or Lilly or Abbott, you definitely have external call centers, hosted by, third-party call centers. So how do you make sure, Joyce touched upon cybersecurity. How do you make sure that people, when working from home on their home computers, appropriate controls have been put? Again, the scalability-wise, you had to make sure you're addressing all those areas. Joyce also touched upon data and science, right? So the question becomes more on, as much as you want to use predictive analytics, can you actually use AI and ML? So let's talk about even basic AI ML, natural language processing. As a call comes into the call center, can you actually listen to a diabetes patient, who's basically wanting someone to listen to the concern they have? So cannot interrupt them, but rather listen to the whole conversation. So how do you use something like NLP with regards to some of the automation you're trying to do? So that's on that front. The other thing is, which I'm pretty sure Joyce and Giuseppe would agree with me, is the investment we made in the past actually paid off. What I mean by that is, what was the reason for us to move towards software as a service? We put a lot of our applications on the cloud, right? Whether it's using Salesforce.com as a software as a service or even infrastructure as a service, all those things paid off because now you don't have to expect people to come into our data center and look at our own internal servers. Now you're pretty much working on a public cloud or a very private cloud. But the good news is that investment paid off. So if you add all these things, whether it's infrastructure as a service, whether it's data science, whether it's the people as an asset, making sure cybersecurity and the data you're sharing is all protected, that is one of the platforms that helped us with the scalability that we never predicted was going to happen. But in these 18 to 20 months, that foundation we laid before actually came to pay off. So, it's like now you look at, CIOs are looking like heroes in front of the CEOs because when we went and asked them millions of dollars, they said, why do you want to go to the cloud? Why do you want to invest in AI/ML? And this thing in an accelerated manner gave the return of investment. And so, business leaders were able to quickly understand why these investments made sense and helped us with the agility and the speed to market we needed. Over to Giuseppe.
Yeah, I mean, Vish, again, you say it very well together with Joyce. I think I love what you said around becoming the heroes of in front of the CEOs. You know, a lot of us, we have done big infrastructure projects around, for example, probably all of you have done Office 365, something that many of the organization never understood why we did those choices. And they paid off very well. You know, I was commenting with a colleague of mine in the business unit. Think about if we would have been hit of this pandemic when software as a service or this major Microsoft stack was not even available. We would have been paralyzed. Internally, we would not be able to collaborate. Internally, we would not be able to, you know, to deliver at scale. In our case, was not a vaccine. For us, was an antibody. We were, you know, competing with Regeneron with the Lilly antibody, and we did in 6 months something that, like you said, Joyce, was not even imaginable before. We use the tech. I would say we use a tech, but to me, it was remarkable the mindset and what I call leaning to yes. I think in the past we were always saying no to a lot of initiatives, or because we were risk averse. In this case, the risk was too big. It was an health crisis that was not only in the United States but across the globe. And aligned to our purpose, we needed to beat that risk. So I think that was one on the internal side. On the external side, as you said, Vishu, all of us, we did the same. We placed chatbot. We have a gigantic spike when we had our Bambalabam antibody in the market. We were not able to fulfill, of course, through the call center. That was amazing that we have, you know, this type of technologies. I think I would like to be at scale you are describing, but all of these capabilities around what we call voice to text and NLP are crucial to drive productivity, right? The more we are going to scale and we're going to, all of us launching new products, how we can, you know, grow our business without growing our infrastructure. That is the challenge. I think all our CIOs are posing not only to the business team, but to all of us, because we are business leader with a technology accountability. So I think I'm not trying to repeat. I think between the internal and external, those were the big bets. I'm trying to remind all the people that mindset and culture, they do the difference in this situation. And I think from our end, but all of you, you have companies that have been delivering remarkably in front of the society. I think leaning to yes was a crucial component, and collaborating at speed was crucial as well.
So contributing to the community at large, from a quality of life, quality of care, and even the quality of science which was disseminated across the masses, what the whole idea was to look at the consumer and the customer in a 360 view, right? So what critical considerations did you have to take, and what kind of business capabilities did you have to build, and the muscle you had to build to deliver that customer experience or consumer experience?
Yeah. Hey, I can take that first, and then that's a great question, and both Vishnu, Giuseppe have touched on it. Like, hey, you know, customer, patient centricity was definitely there. And before I just jump into an internal view, I like to also did what Giuseppe did. The external view, I think, is very important. What was happening outside drove a lot of the thinking inside. Let me tell you, the area of telemedicine, right? You all knew, especially in the US, it was never a reimbursed area. FDA was looking at it, but you know, that was not as popular. You know, people still prefer in-clinic visits to their doctors. During the COVID, you know, everybody had fear, everybody had concerns that there was safety, and that was before the vaccination. So telemedicine became the way to go, and FDA themselves stepped up and started to do the reimbursement. The reason I bring out is back to your point on customer centricity and patient centricity, right? Thinking about how people needed to be served also put J&J back to how we should be serving both our patients and our healthcare professionals. So as I don't want to repeat, everything when digital, my story is very interesting. I wouldn't name the group, but in a certain region, we were planning to, before the COVID, say, hey, we got to get this whole digital engagement rolled out. And of course, the business at that time totally agreed with it and say, yep, we'll do it. The adoption mindset was, okay, I think by the time we looked at the plan, it was about at least 6 to 9 months before we could get that. When the COVID hit, my team got like what Giuseppe said. We were the people they called and say, how can we get the digital engagement right now? And we did it in a matter of a few weeks, I would say, to bring up the entire engagement. And let me tell you, you didn't need to do like training, adoption, workshop. I mean, all these were, cut off. And you think about it, right? I totally agree with what Giuseppe said. It's really a culture, a mindset. When you have a common goal to get there, you say, hey, how do you get it done? And the adoption was there. The need to solve the problem was there. So getting the HCP virtual engagement was a worldwide phenomenon, I would say. And we hit that first with China because the COVID started. We rolled that out actually starting from Asia, which is another interesting view. A lot of things generally would start out of the US, but because of the way the pandemic spread, we started Asia and then out in Europe and then into the US, taking the learnings from the other regions and applying. So I think the other last part I'll add is design thinking. I think one of the things J&J is now bringing, at least with the technology group, to say that we got to bring design thinking into the customer experience. It's no longer about putting together a software and say, hey, you know what, we're going to train people. It's no longer that. It's bringing design thinking into the aspects to understand the user experience, the customer experience, and making that more a product than just another software as a service, but making sure that this is going to address the need. So I think these are some of the things that J&J went through. So love to hear from Vishnu and Giuseppe in this area.
No, very well said, Joyce. The design thinking, J&J is built on process excellence. So, not surprised to hear about design thinking. I'll just take your design thinking and kind of make it more tactical. What we looked at it from a customer centricity is looking at customer 360. That's how we framed the project. And what we did was it's all about the customer journey. So what we did was we started mapping customer journeys. And in this particular situation, a customer definition could be both an internal customer, meaning my sales reps, or my external customer who could be a pharmacy, a physician, or an end consumer who's using the diabetes product. So let me just quickly touch upon all those 4 customer journeys that I touched. The internal sales rep, if you guys remember, during pandemic, you cannot go and visit a doctor and have your call activity. So these people are sitting at home and they still have to make those 8 or 10 calls. So what we did was, and that's the challenge that was given to me, saying that, how do you help our sales reps to do our call activity? So we came up with, working with the sales rep in understanding how does the customer journey happen for you with regards to talking to the doctor. And what we found out was it's pretty much an interaction with the doctor. So that interaction needs to be enabled. And then you're talking about dropping samples and you're talking about dropping white papers and everything, right? Yeah. So here are 3 journeys within that journey that was given to us. So what we did was, obviously, thanks to Zoom, thanks to WebEx, thanks to Microsoft Teams, Slack, I can go on, but these technologies enable the interaction that we had to do with the doctor. So what we did was, as part of that interaction, we enabled, webinar kind of capabilities so that even if a rep is talking to a doctor, they were able to actually do the discussion with the doctor on what's the new product looking like, how to use the product, kind of like a e-detailing kind of aspect within that channel. Then the question with regards to dropping samples, again, you're not physically going to the doctor's office. So how do you, with a single click of a button in a compliance manner, remember there's healthcare compliance, how do you make sure you drop the sample in a compliant way with an e-signature and everything? And then last but not least, the doctor would also want to see, how did an A1C reduction happen? How is continuous glucose monitoring helping? So how do you make sure you send those documents to the doctor, again, in an electronic manner? So it's understanding the customer journey and delighting the customer during the process was what we did with the internal customers. External wise, making it very quick. I already touched upon the doctor, so I won't go deeper into that one. But let's talk about a consumer, right? Again, the consumer was very hesitant to go to a pharmacy to pick up the product. The customer was very hesitant to even go to a doctor to get the prescription. So what we did was we created a customer journey, which was a closed loop, where a diabetic consumer, and Joyce touched upon telemedicine. How do you work with the doctor through a teledoc or any other tool that's available, get that prescription, and how do you automatically send that prescription to a pharmacy, in a way give a white glove treatment to the customer so that he or she is able to get that diabetes glucose monitoring in their house, or able to pick it up from a curbside pickup at pharmacy. Again, I want to go back to originally what I said. The customer was dictating how they wanted that experience, offsite, online, curbside pickup. And what we have to do as a business is adjust our business model in support of that, so that the customer continues to feel like they're getting the value out of that whole transaction. So those were some of the examples I wanted to share, and I'll hand it off to Giuseppe.
Yeah, Vishu, as usual, it looks like we're kind of mirroring each other. I would say that from our end, we did some ACP journeys. One of the challenges we face, because it depends as well the therapeutic area, if it's more primary care or specialty, definitely one of those was not only we had issues to access our customer, but we have even institution now closing because of COVID, any type of access, right? So one of the elements was not only how to enable the reps to connect with and engage with our customers, but was about, okay, maybe we have more than one platform that we need to enable, because there are such and such institution that because of firewalls, they will not enable this such and such platform, right? Sample management, of course, was a common challenge that I think everybody has solved in a way or another. Of course, that has created a lot of new ways of redesigning internal processes. This is where we apply a lot of automation from our end, because we were not able to scale the people side. So we needed to use technology to remove the overhead that was related to this process. The other area I would say we've been focusing as well is what about the medical affairs aspect? I think there has been a huge demand on how we continue to do medical education and create a scientific sharing, right? What about peer-to-peers? So how we can move to a peer-to-peer based model to more a peer-to-peer model, how we can partner with major societies to do medical education. I think there has been, was another element, especially if you are in the innovative place, or where you have maybe an antibody or a new compound just coming out, how you can do that in a COVID time frame, right? So this was as well, we experienced a launch totally virtually that we were forced, and how I think the antibody gave us a little bit of learning there. But I would stress out there was not only the commercial end, where we were focusing from either consumer or ACP, we were focusing as well, I would say as well, on the medical affairs. And because usually that has been traditionally the least, I would say, not innovative, but at least where least investment did go on. And especially when, in our case, we were not able to promote our antibody, because we couldn't promote that. We need to work on influencing, right, the right ACPs. We needed to use the medical affairs channel. So there was a lot of effort on that channel as well.
And Giuseppe, you mentioned about content velocity and adapting content to the audience, and content as data. So across omni-channel, I think Vishu and all of you have been mentioning that as well from a customer centricity. Any comments? And I know you've been doing some path-breaking work around the content transformation.
You're asking me?
Yes, Giuseppe, please.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I would say the COVID period showed us that I would say we were not competitive in this capability. All of us, and probably as CIOs or with my friends CMOs, we have been always aspiring for this omni-channel personalization at one level. I think we've been talking for years. I've been joking with a lot of friends in marketing saying you don't do omnichannel, you do silo channel marketing, right? And what we realized realistically when COVID hit is we were behind, we were benchmarking. We don't want to benchmark with other pharma companies. Always challenge why I need to look at pharma. I don't think we are so innovative on the content side. So we were, with all of us, we have our strategic partners, vendors. We were benchmarking with other major companies, either financial industry or consumer, saying a famous beverage company, for example. I don't want to do any advertisement here. But what we realized is, I think we were not prepared at all, Subrato, to do what I call content at scale. We realized that to win in the pandemic, in the new norm we have, where basically I think all of us is going to be our day, because our customer, they will start to prefer more and more the digital channel over the face-to-face. Of course, they're going to be equally important, but let's face this. Usually in the past, the digital channel has been complementary. I don't think any longer it's going to be complementary. In some cases, it's going to be the unique channel, right? So to do that, we needed to pivot the way we are doing our content. I have to admit that we are trying to revolutionize the way we do content, because we need to create content much faster. The way of our reuse was not at the optimal level. And the other one is, better than me, Subrato, is part of your key competencies in Indegene is you can create as much content as you want. You can create your, let's say, strategic capabilities or competitive capabilities in-house. But then we need to solve the other one, which is how we can do MLR at scale. Because we can't, create more content. We want to personalize. But guess what? We are a regulated industry. We need to solve that piece. So I think one of the elements we have been thinking is how we can solve both together, rather than solving the content and then try to think how we are going to now, I would say, industrialize MLR, right? So we're not there yet. I think there is a lot of experimentation from our end. I think we have a clear vision. I do believe all of us in pharma, we need to learn from others. I do believe consumer industry is giving us a lot of lessons on this regard. And I would always ask to my friends CIOs to connect with big companies, financial companies, or like trying to connect with the AWS in Amazon CMO and try to create those connections, because we can share from each other. But I think we can learn a lot from those industries. So yes, we realize that content is crucial. All of us who are going to be in the future launching at faster speed. So the time to launch a product is going to be probably less for all of us. And therefore, the way from creating a brand strategy to then create content is not any longer long lead time like all of us in our enterprises we were kind of enjoying in the past, how we can shrink that. I think COVID gave us a test that because of necessity, we needed to put all of this upside down in terms of operating model, in terms of challenging. Is it truly something that we can't face because it's bringing maybe not compliance risk, more MLR type of risk? So we realized that the first thing we need to solve is how we can create content at scale with hyper speed, and let's learn from others. This is what we're trying to do.
I think the content at scale, digital at scale, the multiple technologies that all of you outlined, hyper personalization, like what Joyce was saying, and the chatbots and the predictive analytics. All this seems to be indicating that the business looks at technology as a competitive advantage. So do you see a change in the mindset of business? Are they willing to fund you more? Are they demanding more ROI? How are you leading this change within business? And is it really creating, shaking the whole system?
Hey, so Barto, let me touch on that, because it's a very good question. So I want to be very honest, right? I've been in the business before. So I like to say that with the technology, the business is still very laser focused. I'm sure Vishnu and Giuseppe and you would agree. The need to deliver the targets, demonstrate the critical outcomes, asking for ROI, I think has intensified. It actually is they are much more sharpened about asking the where they should invest, as they see the ability for technology to have such a broad-based impact. They want to be able to strategically invest to still get the ROI, and really, I think, to the point of differentiating themselves to the marketplace. I like what Giuseppe said, right? All of us are working. I love his answer on the Omni, right? A lot to learn. I mean, if we look at into the industry, we can benchmark, but there are other industries that ahead that we should learn from, especially people like the FMCG group and in J&J with a consumer business. So one of the things we are doing is trying to really cross-breed and say, hey, how have a consumer business, because they have done excellent work during this time on e-commerce platform, because they have an entire different problem to solve. So the business, I would say, even more strategic about the return on investment. Having said that, they also have increased. I think it's a big change management. I like to bring in that there's tech, but there's really big change management. How do we shift the conversation, right? We can say data is an asset. So they would say, okay, how do you now put it as a measurable currency and monetize it? And one of the questions I get, Subrato, is great. You have all this data science model. How do we net down and say the return on investment on each model? I mean, this is the type of depth I think the CIO, CDO has to now sharpen more skills to really be able to connect all these capabilities together and say, how do they drive value? The other thing, I think, from a CFO, I got a very good question, because we did invest a lot in technology. But I think the aha moment for me is to be able to have the conversation as, let's no longer invest in projects. Let's get out of the conversation. Look at investing in roadmaps, multi-journey, because this is no longer, I and tech, Giuseppe and Vishnu give you elements of it. You got to see it from the entirety end to end, and see, are we funding in a roadmap that will get us somewhere? Because some of these things that we invest are not one time. They have to be continued. I love what Vishnu talked about, laying the foundation. One of the things in J&J technology that we realized that we could do all this hybrid, pivot the virtual engagement, because we laid the foundation on the cloud, the SaaS. So now we're telling the business, as you go into data science, predictive, but laying the foundation for digital at scale, data at scale, is a huge investment that's multi-year. This is not going to be one time. So having that conversation, and also telling the business that the product mindset, the agility mindset, is no longer a tech. We have to work together. We need product leaders in the business that owns it, data owners, and they also need to start working together as an agile team, in squads, team of teams. So all these concepts that software tech has started is now emerging, and it should be seamless, right? I think the dream for me one day is we can't differentiate between, like a business and a tech, and they're working together as a team of teams. Focus on that product, on that roadmap. I think that's the way that we should be heading. Over to you, Vishnu and Giuseppe.
Like what, again, Lee said around, it's not about projects, it's about a roadmap. I would take to the next, maybe to another perspective, is I don't present any longer a business plan. Is always together with my business partner. We don't have any longer submit any roadmap in a way that is a CIO or an IT roadmap. There is not any longer. It's a business capability roadmap. You talk about the maturity model, Vishu. I call that transformation. I have always what I call perform and transform. You call about, CCPA, I would call it perform, right? Or what we call right operate. You need to have that, because otherwise, you need to perform today. But the other one is what you need to have, or the roadmap, I would call it, what is your transformation portfolio to win in the future? Because we want to win in speed, we want to win in creating more efficiency, we want to engage and reach our customer in a scale that is to the next level compared to current state. So I would say one is, those investments are not any longer functional investment, are business unit investment, are cross-functionally represented. So we don't have the tension on the ROI, because we work those together with either the CMOs or the global commercial leaders or the chief medical officer. I think that is a key success factor. But I would agree, you need always to differentiate between perform and transform, so that you invest in the long run. You do your strategic bets, but as well you need to invest because you need to do life cycle management. Guess what? We need to maintain our operations, or we may have a specific investments that are geographically driven. Maybe China has a new privacy law, right, that you need to fulfill. I would divide the portfolio in this way. And last but not least, I would say, I think what I see difference from compared to this past, there is much more appetite to experiment, to do maybe a quick partnership with a startup and take the bullet and take the risk and say, we have an idea here. I call it this channel innovation. There are new models, right? We can always think to engage our customer or to educate our customer, that some startups or even partner with academia. I think those are far much more listened compared in the past, where it was almost an impossible battle.
No, amazing. I think you captured it very well. Perform while transform, and with so many experiments going on in the digital front, this session was truly enlightening. How I can see the excitement, I can feel the excitement in the tone of each one of your voices, what you've gone through. Fast forward so many years encapsulated in 18 months or 12 months, and how you're delivering business agility and surpassing business expectations. So right from personalization, hyper-personalization of care, hyper-personalization of the content and the compliance and regulatory, and how you're creating value. And we not touch much upon organizational productivity. I'm hoping the audience will ask a question around it. But truly an enriching session. Thank you so much, Giuseppe. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Vishu. This was truly enlightening for me, because I met you 12 months back when we did not have the cures or the vaccines. And today we are seeing a whole different new world with the same panelists and the same world that we are living in. So to the audience, please do post your questions on the chat and we'll be happy to answer. We'll take a quick 10-second break for the questions to come in, and we should be on the air soon. So thank you so much for an enriching session again, the panelists. And the first question from the audience is, with the plethora of digital technologies and as an IT professional or a tech professional, where do we upskill, and how are you looking to bring in the right talent in this brave new digital world?
Yeah. Hey, let me start first. I think that's definitely all our common challenge right now. As we know, talent in data, digital, AI, data science is in huge demand with the all the things we talk about with what technology can do. So one of the things we are doing here is actually refreshing our entire digital skills and capability taxonomy. One of the things we realized that, hey, you know what, we may not be set up, not just for, you know, we do have the skills for current plus maybe a little bit more forward, but we don't have the future. So we actually energized, I would say, revamped our digital capability taxonomy, including data, to really use some of our domain experts internally and externally to help us validate the skill sets that we need for the future. So that's one thing very tangible. And secondly, we actually adopted, you know, we talk about doing AI for the business. We brought it into the technology group, working with an external vendor to bring in a AI-driven talent assessment engine to predict, based on our technology digital footprint in terms of our skills, where are our opportunities, what targeted programs for development we can share with our talent, and then of course, why are the gaps and what kind of talent we will need for the future that we may not know. And this requires ingesting both our internal data, but especially also going externally and then merging it together on what other people are doing in this tech space. So these are the two things we are to really attract, retain the right talent.
Yeah, and if maybe I love what you said, Joyce, if I can expand, I mean, Of course, where there is all these emerging trends around the machine learning, right? Because usually used in multiple use cases. I think this is very targeted for specific areas of the organization, typically the advanced analytics groups. One of the other elements we are looking at how we can upskill our current talent, right? There is not only acquisition of new, more innovative, skills. One of them is data analytics, right? So as we transforming the organization to become more data decision driven organization, one of the areas how we can scale the sales force, but as well the marketing teams to become much more analytically savvy. And that is one of the areas where typically you hear in the industry talking about programs like data democratization programs, where we are democratizing data, but if you democratize data, you need to build the skills on how to leverage those assets, right? So that is another element. I think some of us were looking as well how we have the entire workforce prepare for this major digitization transformation, aside of new, let's say, emerging technologies around the AI space that you were citing. The other one, I think the pandemic has demonstrated that probably access, there is a lot of competition of those resources, but the pandemic has showed us that we can work a lot remotely. I do believe this is going to remove usually an old barrier that was access to talent. As we are looking, I think the pandemic has shown that we can, recruit those key talent, especially in highly specialized area like the ones you were talking about, in a more remote type of framework. So that I think is going to give us a lot of opportunity to access talent where it is, and probably attract a lot of people in the organization, even though sometimes a lot of people, they would prefer to be in other geographies, right? So I think at least we are complaining about the pandemic, but the pandemic has shown that probably access is not any longer a problem.
Yeah, quickly adding, I think one opportunity this pandemic created is a lot of learning opportunity for people, especially virtually. So my colleagues touched more on the technology front. So if you think about what is the challenge given to CIOs today is how does the next gen operating model looks like? So in the next gen operating model, you really want technologists to blend with the business people. So the number one thing for anyone during this time is learn your business. Ask the questions to your business. How does success look like? What sort of metrics are we capturing over here? If I'm taking a risk, what sort of failure can we allow in these POCs and pilots? So having that sort of a mentality going in, and then I'm targeting some of these responses on the project managers. If I'm a project manager and if I'm so used to waterfall methodology, start learning agile, get a Scrum Master certification. So getting into that sort of aspects is very important. And for those people who are business analysts, put together customer journey maps, put together, value stream analysis, get into some of the things that Joyce was talking about, design thinking. Why do you have to bring in external people to do the design thinking? If you know your business, if you know your technology, and if you know your process, you could be that architect who's actually doing that kind of analysis so your business sees the value. So I would encourage people, perfect time to learn new things. And it doesn't have to be just in technology. It could be in leadership. It could be in the business read what your competition is doing, learn about your competition. So there's a lot for us to learn during this time.
That's very well said. And that goes to the theme of the conference, Future Ready Healthcare. And as you rightly said, Vishu, learn about competition, learn about your business, learn about how you can get future ready. So the question to the panelists is, what is the muscle you suggest enterprises should really focus on, in your opinion, some of the major muscles to build towards a future-ready healthcare?
Okay, so let me start that. I think when we think about future-ready healthcare, I think we've touched quite a bit of it through the conversation. I still want to think there's a few things. So there is the tech piece. So I love what you said, right? Lots of tech, but the ability to sort of really figure out what works and what is fit for purpose. And that's what I tell my team, right? Today, I think not only us as CIOs, CDOs, a lot of the Silicon Valley partners are calling upon our business, because today with SaaS and everything that can be put around as a service. Even there's tons of data science as a service is evolving, right? So I always say, hey, one of the things we need to know is first understand the business problem we need to solve. So that business understanding, like that Vishnu said, is absolutely critical. So I always ask, what is the business problem we are trying to solve? And then instead of just, I think we need to have internal talent, but I think we didn't touch a little bit of it, is strategic alliance. I think the future for us going to healthcare is to pick the right strategic alliance, right? And I think Giuseppe and Vishnu talk about tech. Our industry, yes, we have what we call our competitive set, but we also have, everybody in technology. With this pandemic, right? Everybody, even in private equity, if they were to invest, they're going to invest in healthcare. So what kind of the ability to really understand which kind of strategic partnership, and I prefer also I wouldn't name companies, but I have certain criterias. Those who are extremely innovative, willing to start small, because I don't want it to boil the ocean, and has a hunger. I think the willingness to try, and I think the business now, as Giuseppe said, is willing to put that and really do more risk acceptance and be able to look at that future of healthcare in a very different way, working with all these partners to really disrupt, especially in healthcare, where we are a lot more regulated. How do we do things that are still compliant, but put us a little bit ahead in the future for healthcare? So over to Vishnu and Giuseppe.
Yeah, let me just build on what Joyce said. I think she said it very well, right? We've got to believe in an ecosystem that is not all about everything invented by you. You've got to look at, is there a company out there that's doing better than us? There's nothing wrong in having some sort of a partnership, right? So even if you look at us, we have a great product in continuous glucose monitoring, but we don't go into the business of insulin pumps or, get into the business what Giuseppe is doing on diabetes medications or whatnot. What we do is we have alliances and partnerships with the company. But as far as being future ready, whether it's for me or Joyce or Giuseppe, we've got to be quickly able to integrate these things together. So if there's going to be a data transfer, is there going to be an application, a mobile app that's going to pull, 2 sets of data? How quickly and how fast and how nimble to the market are you in? Because a consumer is not going to wait for 18 months and 24 months for these two companies to integrate. So if I was going to be future ready, I've got to anticipate some of these future partnerships that are going to come in and build an IT ecosystem that helps with the integration between systems, the transfer of data between one system to another, and making sure it's much more seamless, compliant, and the IT team in our organizations are skilled enough to pick that up very quickly. So building APIs, having those integration is pretty key. Over to just.
Yeah, I mean, Vishu and Joyce, you talk about a couple of points. I think I agree with you, Vishu. As IT leaders, we need to have what I call agility, right? And then you were talking about, Joyce, around choosing the right strategic partners. I think to be prepared in the future, you can be prepared for the future, but maybe sometimes you can shape piece of that. So I do believe that there are opportunities always to invest as well with smaller companies, or have some co-creation session with academia. So this is something that usually in pharma we don't want to do it, because we are a big pharma. Why we should partner with a company that maybe has only 150 employees, right? Or why we are not willing, to rethink how to engage with the doctors, maybe partnering with some of them directly, right? So I think you were talking to Joyce during the initial part of our conversation around design thinking. To me, there is this part of how we can be prepared, but can we continuously explore what is the art of the possible as well, and anticipate new models? I do believe there is always, continuous innovative evolution, but there is as well disruptive innovation, right? So we need to make sure that, not saying we should do disruptive innovation, probably it's going to be someone else going to do in front of us that, but we might pick up some patterns if we do more experimentation. And I do believe those, I think, Joyce, you use the word that are more in anger, they have a little bit more white space in their mind. That's why during the previous few minutes we were in the presentation, I do believe like partnering and looking to other industry is always a great opportunity to either anticipate change or to challenge how you can go to the next level from execution point of view. So that's why I love to have more point of views, and sometimes even have strategic partners is across the industry. We never done that. I think that could be another venue probably we might explore.
Yeah, I think the business has been emboldened with the boon of daring to dream, and they are demanding everything from the CIO, CDOs. So exciting times. Thank you so much for this great conversation on business agility. Hopefully, we'll connect soon and keep in touch. At Indegene, we are hoping to build out a CIO forum, and you will all be our lighthouse clients to lead us along the way. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.
Thank you.